Welcome back, everyone. Spring and summer is a time for new growth and taking bold action together. So we hope these stories can inspire you to live boldly, take wise chances, and with our friends and family, make a difference together. Today we will be reading The Adventures of Wishbone, Digging to the Center of the Earth by Michael Anthony Steele, inspired by A Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne. So lean in with a spirit of adventure, grab a friend, and let's enjoy the story together. Chapter 1. 122, 123, and 124. Wishbone finished counting as he lay sprawled across the seat of a living room chair. The terrier's brown and white spotted ears pointed down at the floor as his head hung lazily over the edge. In case anyone wants to know, he announced to the Talbot house, there are exactly 124 tiles covering our living room ceiling. Wishbone sighed. So, this is what it means to be bored. It's a lazy Saturday afternoon in Oakdale, and Wishbone was very, very, extremely, incredibly bored. Sounds like Avalon. He had counted all of the living room ceiling tiles. He'd even buried everything he owned twice. He had even checked the house several times for intruders. Wishbone had thought about taking a nap, but he was even too bored to sleep. Let's see, the dog said, rolling over. First I was bored in the study. Then I was bored in the backyard. I was bored in the kitchen, if you can believe that. Then I was bored here in the living room. He changed his position again. What a day. This bored dog had been bored in every part of the entire boring house. Wishbone rolled onto his back. Maybe I should go back into the study. It was a little less boring in there. Plus, I think I only counted the ceiling tiles 3 times in there. Suddenly, Wishbone jumped to his feet on the chair. Wait a minute, he said, his head cocked to one side. What if this is it? What if I've already done everything there is to do? He jumped down on the living room floor and began to walk back and forth. What if all I've been on all the adventures I can go on? He circled left. What if I've eaten all the treats there are to eat? He circled right. What if there's nothing left for me to do in the whole wide world? Took 2 quick steps, leaped in the air and spun around. Ah! Wishbone quickly jumped back onto the chair. Yeah, he laughed. There's nothing like a little full-blown panic to cure a case of boredom. He turned to circle on the chair's cushion, then plopped back down. Well, that was fun, the dog said with a yawn and wagged his tail. But what I really need is some genuine, nose-sniffing, tail-wagging excitement. He rolled over and looked out the window. He yawned again. I know maybe I can count the leaves on that walking tree. Through the window, Wishbone saw the top of a small oak tree move across the view of his front yard. A walking tree? Surprised and excited. Wishbone rolled over, forgetting for the moment that he was lying on the edge of the chair. Whoa, hey! The white with brown and black spots dog hit the floor with a small thud. Who, what, where? Wishbone quickly jumped to his feet and looked back to the window. The last of the treetop disappeared from his view. Hey, no tree walks out of my yard! He took off into the kitchen and ran outside through the doggy door. Wishbone trotted across the backyard. He could have moved much faster, but he needed time to think about what he had just seen. Okay, Wishbone, he said to himself. You've just seen a tree walking across your front lawn. What is the meaning of this? Wishbone trotted past a couple of bikes that were laying on the ground. Trees are supposed to have roots, not legs. The terrier rounded a corner of the house and headed to the side yard. But what if some trees have suddenly grown legs? He hopped over a coiled garden hose. What if they're trying to walk away? Like Treebeard. He was almost to the front yard. Where will I be if they all take off? As Wishbone trotted around the corner of the front yard, he came face to face with Wanda Gilmore's brightly colored wheelbarrow. And that wheelbarrow that was about to flatten the cute little dog. Ah, look out! Wishbone yells as he jumped to the side. He narrowly escaped being run over by the bright green and yellow, yet nicely painted wheelbarrow. Whoa, Wishbone, watch out! Wanda cried, pulling back on the 2 yellow handles. Wanda Gilmore was the next-door neighbor of Wishbone and the Talbot family. Although she was a bit unusual, the thin auburn-haired lady was always a kind and caring friend, unless, of course, you happen to get caught burying most of your worldly possessions in her yard. Unfortunately, because her yard had been the best digging dirt of all Oakdale, Wishbone wasn't always on Wanda's good side. She could never stay angry with him, though, for long. After Wishbone would do this, his digging and got a scolding, life would soon return to normal. That is until the next time. There was always one thing that you could count on with Wanda Gilmore. Life definitely perked up when she was around. Wishbone gazed up at Wanda. She was dressed in a t-shirt with a brightly colored work shirt over it, slacks, and gardening gloves. It was clear that Wanda was dressed for dirt. The dog's eyes quickly moved from Wanda to the items that were in her wheelbarrow. There was a shovel, a water cooler, and a small oak tree. You've caught the walking tree, Wishbone said with relief. Good job, Wanda. He was also relieved to see that the tree's roots were surrounded by a burlap bag full of dirt. That was good. No legs there. Joe Talbot, Wishbone's 12-year-old roommate and best friend, stepped off their front porch. "Wishbone, watch where you're going," he said as he came towards a little traffic jam. "Sorry, Joe, I'm just making sure all the trees are present and accounted for." Wishbone gave a look back to the tree just to make sure. From around the corner of the house came Joe's friend Samantha Kepler and David Barnes. They were both very special friends to Joe and Wishbone. David, a kid who could build almost anything out of all sorts of odds and ends, had the curiosity and the interest in gaining knowledge that Wishbone always admired in a human. And Samantha, or Sam for short, was the kind of caring friend who was always there to support others. Her adventurous spirit was also something Wishbone admired. Plus, those two kids, together with Joe Talbot and a dog, couldn't ask for to be a part of a better pack. "Hi, Joe. Hi, Miss Gilmore," David and Sam said as they walked up to the group. Sam kneeled and began to scratch Wishbone behind the ears. "How's your day going, Wishbone?" she asked. "Sam, it's a long story," he replied. One of his hind legs began to kick from pleasure. "But if you keep scratching, I'll be happy to tell you about it." "Hi," Joe said to Sam and David. He then turned back to Wanda. She seemed to be struggling with her tree-filled wheelbarrow. "Miss Gilmore, do you need a hand?" the brown-haired boy asked. No, I've got it," Wanda replied, still struggling. "I'm okay." The tree wobbled back and forth in her wheelbarrow. She kept the same motion going by moving her wheelbarrow back and forth as well. Wishbone thought it was quite a sight. Then suddenly the tree got the better of her, began to lean far out of the wheelbarrow, just quickly, clearly out of control. Wishbone jumped back. "Hey, Wanda, don't let it get away!" Kids ran over and grabbed the trunk of the tree. They kept it from toppling to the ground. Wanda lowered the two yellow handles, letting the wheelbarrow rest on its two support legs. "Well, maybe I do need a little help," she said. She wiped her brow with the back of a gloved hand. "Here, you kids push the wheelbarrow. I'll find the right spot for the tree." "Good idea," Wishbone barked in agreement. "Let's get that thing back in the ground where it belongs." Kids took charge of the wheelbarrow. Joe held one handle while David grabbed the other. Sam steadied the tree's thin trunk. She held it in such a way that it couldn't take another plunge. They followed Wanda as she wandered around Joe's front yard, looking for just the right spot. Wishbone cautiously kept his distance. "Well, this looks like the perfect spot right here," Wanda said, satisfied with this particular patch of yard she had chosen. "Okay, kids, bring it over here." But just as the kids wheeled the tree over, Wanda walked to another part of the yard. "If we put it over there, then I'll get the sun from that direction." Wanda turned to the kids just as they set down their heavy load. "Okay, you three, let's set it right here, all right?" It's like setting up a Christmas tree. Little to the left, little to the right. The kids once again lifted the awkward wheelbarrow and its contents. They shakily wheeled it over to where Wanda now stood. They plopped it down with a huge sigh of relief. Seeing that the danger was over, Wishbone also walked over to Wanda. "Wanda, what exactly are you doing?" he asked. Sam looked over the tree. "What exactly are you doing, Miss Gilmore?" she repeated unknowingly. Wishbone turned to Sam. "Sam, you read my mind." "Well, you may not know it, but today is." Wanda finished her thought by pulling open her brightly colored top shirt, revealing her t-shirt underneath. On the t-shirt, two large printed words rested under a picture of an oak tree. "Arbor Day?" Joe asked, reading the words on the shirt. "That's the day when we celebrate trees," Sam said. Wishbone sat up on his haunches. "For your information, I celebrate trees every day." Wanda turned to Joe. "It's a day where we remember how important trees are to us." She looked around at the others. "They provide shade and beauty and produce oxygen for us to breathe. Every year on Arbor Day, I plant a tree." She motioned to her tree-filled front yard. And this year I said to myself, "Wanda, why don't you be a good neighbor and share your joy with someone else?" And so I decided to plant a tree for you and your mom, Joe. Joe smiled as she continued, "But I guess I could be convinced to let you guys help." The kids looked at one another. Sam and David swapped a quick glance and a smile. Sam said, "Well, okay, Miss Gilmore. That's the spirit," Wanda said excitedly, reaching into her wheelbarrow. Joe looked around. "So where do we start?" he asked. Wanda pulled out the shovel. "Well, you dig, of course." She handed the tool to Joe. "I've got a few more shovels in my backyard. I'll go get them and be back in a jiffy." She started to leave, then turned back to the kids. "Oh, there's some water there in case you get thirsty." Then she took off towards her house. "Did someone say dig?" Wishbone barked eagerly and his ears picked up. "This is going to be great!" He watched Joe begin to dig the hole. "Joe, you start while I keep an eye on the tree." Wishbone walked up to the tree. "I've got some plans for you, tree." Everyone watched as Joe pulled the dirt-filled shovel from the ground. He dumped its contents into a neat pile beside the newly formed hole. Wishbone's attention was drawn from the tree to the pile of dirt. He took in a deep breath. The smell of fresh dirt in the afternoon. He pawed at some of the fresh chunks. "Joe, you're doing a top-notch job. Just look at this big piece," he said, tail wagging with happiness. Wishbone's tail continued to wag. "Joe, your digging is really great." Wishbone's paws tightened, "but maybe you could use a break." his tail wagging even faster. Wishbone could hardly control his excitement. "Ah, Joe!" Wishbone watched as Joe kept digging, the lovely smell of the fresh earth drifting Wishbone's way with every stroke of the shovel. Why should Joe be able to keep all the fun to himself? That's it, Wishbone thought. He could stand no more. The dog dove headfirst into the hole. "My turn," he yelled as dirt began to fly under his paws. As the soil came loose from the earth, Wishbone's happiness grew with every pawful. Digging was definitely his most favorite thing to do in the whole wide world. Well, except for eating. Okay, it was one of his two most favorite things to do. Well, except for chasing cats. All right, eating, digging, chasing cats. Oh, and don't forget books. Okay. All of the above were on Wishbone's favorite list of favorite things to do in the whole wide world. And since there wasn't a cat, book, or ginger snap in sight, digging won for now. He dug deeper and deeper, faster and faster, even though the sound of his nails tearing into the earth and the dirt flying past his hind legs. Wishbone was able to hear the kids exclaim with amazement about the amount of dirt he was moving. More important, he could hear Joseph's reply. "He's a digging machine," Joe said to his friends. Wishbone's heart soared, knowing he was making his boy proud. He must dig harder and faster. But just as he was going into doggy overdrive, he felt something hard beneath his nails. It wasn't as hard as a rock, but it was not your average dirt clod. Wishbone carefully cleaned away the dirt from around the object. Then he reached down and grabbed the round flat item with his mouth. It was about 3 inches in diameter. "Nope, it definitely doesn't taste like a rock," he said as he jumped out of the hole. "What you got there, boy?" Joe asked, seeing the dirt-covered object in the dirt-covered dog's mouth. "I just dig the stuff up, pal. I don't analyze it," the dirty terrier replied as he turned towards Joe. "But I do know it's not a rock. Rocks have a more, well, rocky taste." Joe reached down and removed the object from Wishbone's mouth. Okay, let's try this again. Let's see. "No, it definitely doesn't taste like a rock," he said as he jumped out of the hole. "What you got there, boy?" Joe asked, seeing the dirt-covered object in the dirt-covered dog's mouth. "I just dig the stuff up, pal. I don't analyze it," the dirty terrier replied as he turned towards Joe. "But I do know it's not a rock. Rocks have a more, well, rocky taste." Is that better? Joe reached down and removed the object from Wishbone's mouth. He turned it over and over in his hand. "Oh, it's just an old piece of junk," he said, handing it to David. Wishbone spat bits of dirt out of his mouth. "Tastes old, too." Sam came close to David, looked down, and examined the disc. "I don't think this is just a piece of junk," he said, trying to scrape away the rest of the dirt. As some of it fell away, a pale yellow color was revealed. Sam pointed to something near the edge of the piece. "Hey, it looks like there's writing on it," she said. David quickly began to remove the dirt from around the spot where Sam was pointing. "Yeah, I see. It looks like initials." He scraped some more dried soil away with his fingernail. "Looks like the letters NJ." David looked up from his friends. "This could be something really important." "Well, there's only one way to find out," Joe said. "Let's take it inside and clean it up." Wishbone watched as the kids ran towards the house. Wanda came around the corner just as they reached the front steps. "Hey, where's everyone going? Who is going to help?" she asked. Wishbone went back to the freshly dug hole and peered inside. Mysterious initials on an ancient artifact. That sounds familiar." He let his imagination take over. The hole seemed much deeper and wider now. It seemed deep enough to plant 100 trees inside, maybe even 1,000. His imagination carried him further. Now the hole was so deep that it seemed to stretch to the very center of the earth itself. Wishbone's head snapped up and he came out of his daydream. "That's it," he shouted. "That's what that mysterious artifact reminds me of. This is just how Professor Lidenbrock's adventure began in Jules Verne's classic novel, A Journey to the Center of the Earth." A Journey to the Center of the Earth is a classic science fiction novel, as we know. And science fiction is one of my favorite kinds of fiction. It's the kind of story in which incredible things happen, and they are still very believable because they're based on real scientific facts or ideas. And this fantastic story is no exception. What if you were able to travel very, very, very deep down inside the Earth? What would it be like, and what would you find once you were there? Well, those were the questions Jules Verne answered when he wrote A Journey to the Center of the Earth. The story takes place in 1863, and it begins in the city of Hamburg, Germany. Professor Otto Lidenbrock, a well-educated man who teaches and studies the science of geology, and his nephew Axel are about to find a mysterious artifact. This will lead them on the most fantastic adventure of their lives. And that does it for Chapter 1, and I'll see you next time for Chapter 2.